Maideli, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here. And honestly, you are someone who should have been on the show a long time ago because you've been in the Yo Quiero Dinero orbit for a long time as a client. We met in real life at FinCon last year. And so, not last year, the year before. Last year, I was on quarantine because I was pregnant. But I'm so excited to finally welcome you to the show because the work that you're doing is so important. And I think it's such a timely era for us to be having the discussion around money and how your background as an immigrant can impact that, right? Like there's just so many conversations that need to be had around those topics. And so I'm so excited to welcome you here to the show.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here to finally have a conversation on this. This has been my dream for a very long time. Isn't it great though? Like you having a podcast and to think like people are putting my podcast on their vision board. Like how amazing is that? You should be very proud of what you've built, Janice. I've been following you for such a long time. You're definitely one of the first women of color that I've been following and listening to and just learning from. And I feel like I have grown with you, which is amazing because I've seen your own personal growth and your professional growth. And I'm just very, very happy and feel very, very blessed to be here with you today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Let's dive into your backstory. So give us a kind of a high level overview of who you are, what you do, and then we're going to get into all the nitty gritty.
Yes, of course. So my name is Maideli Garcia. I am a daughter of Mexican immigrants. I've been in the States my whole life, but I've always had that. I think that a lot of us children of immigrants also have that. We're kind of immigrants with our parents trying to learn all of the systems that they didn't learn. So we're teaching them and learning for ourselves. I was a teacher for many, many years. I was a teacher for 7 years, internationally, public, private. I tried it all. And I got burnt out. While I was teaching, I was reading about personal finance. I actually started learning about it before the pandemic and then really dove deep into it during the pandemic because I had more time and I really wanted to get my money right during that time. And then I realized that on a teacher's salary, I was doing so well in trying to manage the little salary that I had. And I started to realize how big of a difference earning more would make for me. And that's when I started my pivoting journey, burnt out from the pandemic, from teaching the pandemic. And I transitioned outside of the teaching space, education space. And now I work in tech. I work remote. I earn 3 times what I earned as a teacher. It's getting closer to 4 times now. And it's just amazing to me how little steps have created what I have now. And I have my own money coaching business because I want this for everybody. I want this for all of my clients, for more women of color, specifically for first gens. And I just want to be a part of the people like you, like all of the other people that I follow that are doing this work. I think we still need more. And I'm happy to be a part of this and spreading this financial literacy and just motivation for our community.
I love that. Your story is so inspiring just in what you've shared. And I think when I kind of aggregate all the people in my head who have really been able to do incredible financial things, it is first that curiosity. It is that like understanding that there is more out here to understand. And if you don't have the baseline level of education, which most of us do not, it's going to require you to do that self-development work, that personal finance, self-education. So let's start there. Where did you start when you were learning first about personal finance? Everybody has their own journey. For me, it's podcasting just because I do not have the attention span to sit down and read books, but there's a myriad of ways to learn about money. So what was your journey?
Yeah. So I started, I think, the way many people that I've talked to have started by Googling, how do I get out of debt? Right? Like you're just looking at your credit card statements and you're just like, all right, this needs to stop. Let me turn to my friend Google and find out. So I did start with Dave Ramsey books because that's what I saw as my top result on how to get out of debt. And, I started reading all the books and I started consuming that content and I got very rigid with my methods and was judging people who weren't doing the things that Dave Ramsey was doing because I thought I was suddenly enlightened by the right way to do things. And I just quickly realized that there has to be better ways, that there has to be ways that actually resonate with and that, samples in the books that are more about my experience and my background. And so I quickly started to follow people on Instagram. One of the people I followed was you and listening to podcasts created by people of color. And I'm just like, what have I been doing? Why have I been wasting my time on books that don't necessarily speak to me, just make me feel a lot of shame and feel like I have to change everything in my life and just be angry at the way that I used to manage my money and not really have that forgiveness for myself. Like it really just brought up a lot of shame. So that's how I started. And I'm glad that I found creators that I could relate to more, because I think after that, it just like skyrocketed from there because I finally
Yeah.
felt the empowerment that I needed.
There's so much power in just feeling like you have something in common with someone. When I talk to a lot of folks who have come through the Dave Ramsey route, I mean, he is the king of SEO when it comes to showing up on a Google search for personal finance. He's got that shit locked down. And so for a lot of people, that is the entry point. But I'm so glad that we are in an era where the conversation is much more nuanced and you have all these different perspectives that you can feel like are more relatable. Because I think that relatability is what encourages people to really feel seen and to feel like the advice is relevant to them versus just seeing it as like this aspirational thing that's not necessarily accessible to you because you don't relate with the person who's relaying that message.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it also takes away the shame that we give ourselves for not knowing better and
Yeah.
for being in
I
the
mean,
situation that we're in.
Dave Ramsey has commercialized shame and guilt when it comes to money too. So that's
Absolutely.
that's for a whole other topic. Yeah. So for me, that's not a sustainable way to learn. I mean, you think about dieting, for example. The reason why it has such a high failure rate is because it's like you're punishing yourself for feeding yourself well, but it's branded very toxically. And then with working out too, it's the same thing. It's like, oh God, I gotta go and like work out. And when it's all about the mindset that you have around what you want to do, what is that end goal? And money is no different. So, one of the things I found interesting about your story is that you taught yourself personal finance, but there was a deeper reason why. There was a family emergency that kind of made you realize, oh, maybe like money's kind of a big deal. Can you take us back to that moment?
Yes, absolutely. So that moment to me was in 2016 when my dad suddenly passed away and he was in Mexico at the time. And we were all in the States. We were in Mexico with him. He was there on family vacation. And at that point, we all had to book flights. We had to make accommodations. We had to turn our lives around and figure out a way to get there, to deal with the expenses, all of the above. And that was the time when I had my credit cards maxed out and I couldn't put the ticket on my card. And so I had to get support from somebody else. And to me, that moment stuck with me because it was a moment where I felt like money was controlling my ability to make certain decisions. Like it almost kept me from going to my dad's funeral. And that to me was like, wow, I have to do something for myself. Like this isn't normal. Like at that point, I was already a professional. Like I was in the teaching space. And so to me, I felt like I should be able to afford something like this. Like I make more than my parents ever made. Like why can't I do this expense? And so that's where, I started feeling shame for the situation I was in. And I feel like sometimes having those moments where you're just like, what the hell am I doing? Helps motivate you so that you're like, okay, I need to change my situation. I need to find a way out. I need to problem solve. And so that was a moment for me where I'm just like, okay, I need to start thinking about this. And actually, after that happened and, we were grieving, but I decided that I would go and teach abroad in Korea. And a part of me felt like because I didn't have to pay for rent the way I was doing in the States, which was probably half of my paycheck at the time. I was earning 35K as a teacher. And so I thought like, if I don't have to pay for rent and I'm living in Korea, what can I use that money for? Like, that's the money that I'm going to use to like start paying down my debt. Once I figure out how to do it, that's the extra income that I need right now. And so I did. I ended up going to Korea and like slowly started to put money towards my debt, which is what I thought was what's keeping me behind. I didn't even know about investing. I didn't know about any of those things. I just knew that the debt was what made it so that I almost didn't do what I needed to do in that time. And so, yeah, so that event definitely brought about change in my life little by little, right? Like it wasn't like after that happened, suddenly I started doing all the things right. It wasn't like that. But I think that's the events that I always go back to because that's the first time that I felt like I need to solve this and I need to start thinking about it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a really powerful story. And it's a powerful wake up call to have that type of moment where you potentially can't be there for the people that you love. I think when we think about the greater why of why most of us change our financial situations, it's not about something as simple as like, I want to be debt free. It's like, I want to have more time. I want to have more freedom. I want to have more options. I want to be able to be there for the people that I love. And I think that's the kind of stuff that keeps you motivated versus the very basic level whys. And so for me, it was a combination of things too. It was just like feeling out of control. Like the idea of someone controlling you with money, with a paycheck, just never sat well with me. And so, I think there's an inner rebel that lives within all of us that really start taking money and like using it for the power that it has versus feeling like you're controlled by it. And so I want to know from you, what were those initial steps? So moving to Korea, that's no big, deal, right? That's like whatever. There's
Yeah.
some shit I can decide to do out of nowhere. Take us through that decision because that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I always wanted to teach abroad. I always wanted to travel, and I was already doing some research on Korea before this happened. And there was a time in my life where I thought like, oh, I can't leave now because this happened, and I suddenly, I have to take care of my mom. I have to do all this. But then, I later decided like, no, this is actually going to help me because I don't have to pay rent in Korea. So this is a good thing. I can help her more. I can do more. And so, yeah, so that decision to me wasn't as hard as it might be for other people just because I thought it would help me. It would help me move forward. It would help my mom out more financially. It will help me pay my debts. And so it was easy from there to just decide like, yep, I am doing it.
How
And
long were you there?
I was there 2 years. So I lived in Korea 2 years and I was teaching there. And yeah, and I wasn't paying rent. I was getting free lunch, even though my salary increase from the States wasn't that much. I think I only went up by 2K. I was getting paid 37K in US dollars in Korea. I didn't have to pay rent, which is like the biggest expense. So I felt like I had a salary increase for sure. But yeah, that was one of like the first decisions. And then trying to look up what is the best way of actually paying off the debt? How much do I send to it? But I definitely had times even living in Korea because, I still wanted to travel. I still didn't have a manageable way of spending my money. I still didn't know about investing. And so there was times where I would still overdraft even being in Korea, even though I didn't have to pay my rent. And so like little by little, I had to make those smaller changes. I think when I really started getting serious about like, okay, I need to start actually saving now that I'm almost done with my debt. I need to actually start learning more is when I came back from Korea because guess what? I have to pay rent in the United States and I'm back to a teacher's salary that, it doesn't allow me to live the luxurious life that I felt like I was living in Korea. And so I started getting more real with it once I came back.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about your debt payoff journey. Like, how did you develop your strategy? What is your favorite budgeting method? Give us the numbers. And how much debt were you in?
I can never give a specific amount just because I didn't have the awareness of what the specific amount was, right? But I was in over 40K of debt. Yeah, most of it was credit cards, but there was also a car loan that I took out after my dad passed away, just so that I have a car to get to my mom. So it was all debt that was high interest, other than the car loan. The car loan wasn't too bad. But I didn't have student debt because I went to a predominantly white institution and I got a scholarship because of my high GPA and because they needed more representation at their school. And they had a program that offered that to people who were high in their GPA, who were merit-based, but also diversity-based. And so I didn't have student debt. And so that was part of my shame too, is thinking like, I don't even have student debt and I'm in this amount of debt. Like, what is going on? But most of it was credit cards for sure.
Okay. So you realize you have all this debt, and the first step after obviously increasing your income slightly with moving to Korea is making a plan. So take us behind the scenes of what that plan looked like.
Yeah, so my plan initially was the Dave Ramsey plan. So I followed the baby steps. I did what I had to do. And I don't know how familiar people are with the baby steps, but
yeah, you can give us a breakdown for anybody who's never heard of them.
I honestly, I don't remember what they are. I just
all I know is like the $1,000 emergency fund.
Yes.
And
I
then
did
it's
that.
like pay off all your debt. Like don't use credit card. Don't buy a house. Don't invest. Don't do anything until you're debt free. And it's like, sir.
Absolutely. Yeah, don't step into a restaurant. Don't grab any coffee. So just like I eliminated all sorts of fun expenses from my budget. And I didn't go out as much. I definitely did a more rigid approach. And soon after, I started realizing that it wasn't for me, especially once I started hearing more about other people's journey. And I ended up paying it off in about 2 years. And at that time, I also started learning more about investing and about the power of that. And so I think for me, the earning more was a big motivation. And when I left teaching, I feel like that really opened up the doors to because Dave Ramsey teaches this methods, but it doesn't really allow you to understand that there's more. Like there is potential for more. It doesn't just have to be about taking away and restricting and making your life miserable until you can finally live a good life once you're debt free. Like earning more really allowed me to see that there are different ways to solve this problem and to create something that can work more for the lifestyle that I want to have. And the power that I truly have to find almost like a limitless ability to earn more. Like I didn't realize that until, I started learning about entrepreneurship and I started earning more through my 9 to 5 and being remote. I didn't realize, I don't want to say easy, but how not difficult earning could actually be, because growing up, I saw my parents as immigrants and the kinds of jobs that they had and the laborers, physically laborers, mentally laborers jobs that they had. And I felt like as a teacher, I was just earning money the way that money should be earned, by working hard, by being stressed, by working over 12 hours, by feeling burnt out, by being tired. And so leaving that really allowed me to experience and to have perspective that earning doesn't have to feel that way. And money coming to me doesn't have to feel that way. And that was a big learning for me and something that I couldn't learn through Dave Ramsey's program or rigid programs like that. And it's something that I learned through just following other individuals who changed their path, who decided differently, who decided to be entrepreneurs, who decided to leave their jobs that weren't paying them enough. And that's when I really started realizing the power that I have to find more and to bring more abundance in my ways and in my terms.
I think that's such an important conversation that a lot of people just can't wrap their heads around, how you can translate your existing skill sets into just a higher earning career. And so I want to talk to you because as a teacher, I have a lot of teachers that listen to this show. I have a lot of teachers who've been clients. And there's this mindset block that happens for a lot of people of just not understanding how they can translate their existing skill set into a different industry. And for you, you took your experience in teaching and pivoted to tech, which on the surface level is what the hell do those two things have to do with each other? But, I think there's a lot in common when it comes to just the ability to show people how to do things. That's a skill set that you can translate across any industry. So what does that transition look like for you? How did you pivot those skills?
Yes, absolutely. I feel and I truly believe this, teachers have one of the most complex, hardest jobs with so many skills required in the world. And I feel like they are so qualified to do so many different type of jobs outside of teaching. And translating that skill set just involves me learning from others, seeing others' experience, and really seeing what did they do? And instead of seeing them as oh, I can never do that because, they had this, and that, and I don't have that. I started just asking what can my journey look like? How can I do it in my way, in a way that fits what I have and the skill set that I have? And soon I started realizing just how much we're already doing as teachers and how much we do day in and day out. And my job was just to learn how to translate that into verbiage that the outside world will understand, because, people don't know how hard teachers work unless you're an actual teacher. Those are the only people who know how hard they work. And so my job was just to show it through translating the verbiage, translating what I did into terms that others understand. And I got really good at it because I have ADHD. So I get hyper focused on the thing that I want to learn. And so I just did so much research and learned very quickly how to translate my skills, not lie, but just show people this is what I do in these terms. And updating my resume, I did save money while I was teaching. I started doing after school programs so that I can enroll in a boot camp, because I do believe that after I had my money in order, even as a teacher, I have the ability to use money to help me get somewhere faster, to save me time, to invest in myself and in my growth. And one of the things I did was invest in a boot camp that just helped give me that accountability, helped provide that community that I needed and that mentorship that I needed to get where I wanted to be quicker. So I did that and I learned so much through that program, and I ended up not accepting my next teacher contract. That decision to me was easy. I had an emergency fund at that time. And so I thought my emergency fund's going to help me. So to give me time to get the next job. And so I didn't sign my teaching contract. I actually dropped out of the master's that I was doing to become a teacher, which is a whole nother story in itself. But I decided to just let all that go because I knew that it was possible for me to get another role and to get higher pay. And so I went from there, and I did. I soon after, in June, after my last year of teaching, I got my first remote job for a language company, which went really well with what I did. I created courses for them, all remote. I had more flexibility. I think that first role was 30K more than what I was earning as a teacher, which is so significant. And so by that time, knowing how to manage my money, I knew exactly where that 30K was going to go, which was very nice. I don't know if we want to get to this part, but that company actually laid me off 6 months later. So I had so many turns and twists in my journey. But even then, I was able to find a job 2 months after that. I already had the skill set that I needed. I had now at that point 6 months of experience in the corporate space from that company that laid me off. And so I just did it again. I did it again and I did it better. And the job I got next is the job I have right now. And I've been able to grow with them and increase my salary even more by negotiating and just little by little learning those things. So basically what I'm saying for my story is that any teachers listening to this, just knowing that so many skills that you already have just need to be translated, but also that you have the ability to learn skills that you don't already know. And it doesn't necessarily require another degree. It doesn't require you going back to school. Like I dropped out of my master's. And it just requires you, getting creative with what you have and asking questions and not being afraid to look for something else and investing the time and possibly the money like I did into learning more, because it's definitely possible. And yeah, I feel like teachers have so many skill sets, and many professions are like that, especially professionals that work in the nonprofit space. I feel like they have such a wide range of skill sets that corporate companies that pay more would be just so lucky to have them. And it's just, our role is just to brag about ourselves and to translate those skills in a way that will be valuable to them.
I love that mindset of just not seeing that transition as something that's impossible, of just really embracing this idea that you can create the change that you want to see. And that growth mindset, I feel like that's something that I find is very common in people who are really able to excel, not just with their money, but in life in general. I think it's just such an important way to live. I'm curious if you can share some potential like titles in the tech industry that folks can identify. If you're in a teaching job right now and you want to potentially like move to tech, what are some roles that would make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I know so many because of my journey, and I shared everything on my Instagram account and with my clients and my community. I had so many teachers reach out to me and ask for support. And so I ended up launching an offer where I mentor teachers on transitioning outside of teaching. And so I am very familiar with so many roles that they can do, but just to give you a few, the one that I did, which I feel like a lot of people tend to do if they're transitioning, is like a learning experience designer, instructional designer. You're basically designing the instruction and the learning experiences of whether it's like customers of a certain product or service, or even partners of the product or service, or internally creating training for the employees. So you're still using all of your skill set of knowing how people learn, designing training for them in a way that's not complex, that's simple, the way you do for your students. And that is a role that translates really well. But so many other roles could be even like customer success. Like just as teachers, we love getting our students from point A to point B, and a role like customer success where you take your customers from point A to point B translates really well. And it might just require like learning the verbiage, learning the systems and like the technology. So that's another role. There's so many different roles out there. Right now I'm working with a client who loves organizing, and she loves using highlighters and just, very type A. And a good role for her is like, executive assistant, or just somebody who manages calendars, who manages people's timelines. And for somebody like her who, she's really good at that organizing, she could then use like her creative energies for her hobbies that she hasn't been able to use as a teacher just because she's so stressed out and burnt out from teaching. And so there are just so many roles out there. Project management. We manage so many projects as teachers, and I don't think we realize how much until you start learning about how many projects people in the corporate world manage at a time. You realize like, damn, like I was managing like 12 different projects for 40 different students. And in this job, I only have to do one project. And you mean I don't have to teach students on this? Like, yeah, it's just incredible how much we do and how much we don't realize what we do. And so project management is such a huge one. Program manager is such a huge one. Yeah, so many things. I could go on and on different roles, but I think those are probably the top ones that people do from that transition from the teaching space.
I love it. And that's why doing your research is so important, y'all, because you don't know what you don't know. So the first step is really to get curious and follow people who are living the life that you want to live, get inspired by what they share. There's so much information out here. So it really is up to you to decide. I just want to learn about what the potential options are here, and then you can create your own path moving forward. So I want to dive into something that I think a lot of people struggle with, which is the idea of quitting. So you mentioned that you quit this master's program. I can imagine any Latino parent who hears their child is dropping out of a master's program is about to have a freaking heart attack, right? Like that's one of these things that I think internally we see quitting oftentimes as like this terrible thing that you must never do. You must continue to commit. You know, you quit your master's program, you quit your teaching career. How do you reconcile that? Like, what advice do you have to people who know it's time to move on? They're afraid of the perception of what that's going to look like to other people. They're afraid of the opinions they're going to get. They're afraid of trusting themselves to know that this needs to be done.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say that I validate how hard it is to quit something, especially after doing it for so long. It definitely wasn't an easy decision. I think it kind of grew on me eventually, but quitting my master's, first of all, I really had to think about like, what is the reason that I want to do this master's? Oh, so that I can get paid more as a teacher. But I don't want to be a teacher anymore. So why am I doing this master's? Like, why continue with this? And so really thinking about your reasons for doing something. And if those reasons just don't feel right to you, then is the reason just so that I can say that I have a master's? Is it just so that I can make my parents' sacrifice worth it and all the other stuff that we're trained to tell ourselves as children of immigrants? And really thinking like, is it actually something that I want for myself? And the answer to me was no. You know, I was doing it for those reasons that I just talked about, and not really for me, not really for my own growth and my own joy. And so that one was the thing. And then quitting my teaching career, the same thing goes. Like there was a risk that if I quit, I would be in a worse position. I would find a job that's even worse than teaching and burns me out more than teaching. And the money's not even worth it. Like that was a risk that I knew I was taking. But just thinking like, okay, are you happy now? Like, what is your happiness level now? It's probably at a 30%. Okay. And if you quit and you got to a 50% happiness, is that better than the situation you are now? Yes, absolutely. So it's like, why not do it? Like the worst that can happen is you get into a situation that's below 30% and you go back to teaching and you're still at a better place than just sticking with it. And so just realizing that if what's on the other side doesn't work, you could always choose differently. If
You can always
you,
go back too. I think that's the thing too. It's like, yo, the worst case scenario is right now. So like, what is the fucking problem? Just do it. Try something new.
yes, absolutely. And we talk so much in the financial space about like sunk cost fallacy, but I feel like we experience that so much in our personal lives too. Like, you know, the fear of leaving a relationship because you've already been doing it for so long. You almost feel like that time was wasted. And so I really had to retrain my brain and show it that like the time in my master's program that I did wasn't wasted. I met so many cool individuals that I still am connected with, and it wasn't wasted. The time as a teacher was 100% not wasted. I do not regret a single moment of the teaching experiences that I had. And I would not be in the position I am now, earning what I earn now, if I hadn't experienced what I did as a teacher, if I hadn't learned the skills I did as a teacher. So really seeing those years as learning instead of wasting them really helps with that sunk cost fallacy where you're just scared of going to the next thing because you've already been doing it for so long. And that just like translates into the rest of my life too. Like you, I was also able to leave a long relationship. And I think that was like also a byproduct of leaving my teaching career, leaving all these things, like seeking more abundance and just knowing that a different decision is going to be better than what I have now. But right now I'm living the worst case scenario. So, you know, might as well try. Really helped me make all of those decisions. And I think the feeling of knowing that there's more out there, that abundance mindset is something I really had to work on. And my money journey started that. And like little by little, you know, it got to this. So yes, definitely validate feelings of leaving something that you've been doing for so long. It is an identity crisis, and I validate that too. But starting to slowly train your brain and ask those questions and really reflect on why you want to do it in the first place and what you're really scared of. And how does that compare to what you're living right now, I think are good things to think about.
Yeah, I love that advice. Okay, so at what point in your personal finance journey were you transitioning into tech? Like, were you already debt free when you got all this salary increase, or like, where were you?
Yeah. So I was already debt free. I actually owned a home at that point with my ex partner. I already started investing. I was getting so close to maxing out my Roth IRA that year. I was already like in a, you would say, pretty good financial situation when I transitioned outside of tech, which really shows me that even on a teacher salary, things are possible. And because my clients don't make six figures. And so I validate their experience and I help them create a plan that works for the salary that they have currently. But then when I was able to transition, like I said, I knew exactly where that money was going to go because I already had a plan for the money that I had now. And so I have always thought of like, if I ever earn more money, where would I put it? Oh, I would put this towards investing. I would put this towards, starting to get my nails done on a monthly basis. Like I already knew exactly where I wanted to put my money. And the way I make that decision is really just how do I support current me? How do I support future me? And really thinking about all versions of me and making sure that money goes towards that. Any extra income goes towards that is how I dealt with that salary increase. But yes, I was already debt free when I transitioned.
I love it. So, as far as what your financial life looks like now, like take us behind the scenes. What do you prioritize? How do you invest? Like, what's your secret sauce for success?
Yes, absolutely. So now that I do earn more money, and of course I earn the money that I earn through my business as well, my priority right now is investing. I love working with my clients. I wouldn't say that I love my 9 to 5 job, but I appreciate it and it pays what I needed to pay and it's providing the lifestyle that I want right now. And I see it as temporary because, one day I do want to be able to retire early and to not have that commitment of a 9 to 5 and be able to work on my business part-time, but then, do whatever I want and just enjoy life and be with family and be with friends. And I'm already doing some of that now. I'm a big advocate of the future life that you want and really envisioning what that will look like, but trying to add pieces of it now is really important to me. That's how I work with my clients is how can we bring those aspirations that you want for your future life, that freedom you want for your future life and start incorporating it now in the ways that fit in your situation right now. And so I do travel a lot right now and I do spend a lot of more time with family and friends right now. But with the goal in mind that I'm going to invest as much as I can so that I can retire early and not be tied to a job because of benefits or because of the pay and to be able to live off my investments and help my family and my community also get there. And so, yeah, right now my priority is just investing, learning better methods to invest. I'm starting to learn more about real estate and seeing if that's an avenue that I want to take. And that's my priority right now is just how do I get to even more freedom than what I have now and creating a plan for that and supporting my clients in whatever journey they're in as well.
I think that sounds amazing. And I think a lot of people would be very excited to be working towards a goal like early retirement. I'm curious, what does your investing strategy look like? What kind of accounts do you use? Are you an index fund investor? Do you like researching individual stocks? What's your method?
I love simple. I love simple. I love easy. I love automatic. Something that helped me so much as somebody that has ADHD is just automating everything. So I do not have the time or effort or mental capacity to look at individual stocks. So that is not what I do. I love low cost index funds. I'm a low cost index funds girly. So I invest in my Roth IRA. I invest in my 401k through my employer. And then I have my taxable brokerage account as well on the side. But I buy only low cost index funds. That is my favorite method of investing. And just now I'm starting to get more curious about real estate investing because I did own a house with my ex-partner. And after I sold my part, I do have that extra income that I'm trying to play around with the idea of like buying a property, not to live in it, but to also be a part of my investment strategy. And so right now, that's what it is. It's simple. And I love that for me. And I think that's just a big misconception in our world that investing has to be so complicated and you really have to learn about each company and all that. And it doesn't have to be that way. It can if you wanted to, if it works for you, but I'm all about simple. And so that's my investing strategy. That's how I would word it in one word, simple.
What was your method for learning about investing?
It was a Dave Ramsey. By that point, I started learning investing. I already listened to podcasts. So I listened to your podcast and learned from Ramit Sethi. He was one of my favorite personal finance creators. And so reading books and podcasts, that's how I learned books and podcasts. Yeah.
I love it. We have a copy of Ramit's book somewhere in the library here. I recommend highly pick up a copy of this book. I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. He's on his third edition at this point, and it is the real story of like how to do money without complicating shit. And he talks about
Absolutely.
the
Yes.
simplicity of it.
He got me with simple.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We don't have time out here to be
Nope.
doing all
No.
the things. We're just trying to get rich quickly.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Quickly and
Yes.
simply. All right. So, as someone who has seen the power of increasing your income have a direct impact on your life, what advice would you have for other people who know that, like, there's nothing left to cut? I just literally don't make enough money. I need to start making more money. Like, where do we start?
Become curious. I think that's a good way to start. To know that the situation you're in doesn't have to be the situation you're going to be in forever. And I also think that earning more, especially things like side hustles, and this is what I help my clients do too, is being very intentional on why you want that side hustle. So for example, me doing those extra hours at the after school programs, I wanted to earn more so that I could get a boot camp to transition outside of teaching. So really having an intention of why you're doing that extra thing that you're doing, if it's a side hustle, or why you want to get that higher paying job. What will you do that with that money and why? And starting with that intention will help with the curiosity of like, okay, this is how much I need to get to that goal. What can I do to create it? And start researching ways to get that type of income that you're seeking. And then just telling yourself that it could be temporary. If it's getting a side hustle, it could be temporary. It doesn't have to be forever, just until you get into your goal. If it's earning more income, like that could also be temporary if that's what you want. Like, so for me, telling myself what extra income would look like, how I can retire earlier if I earn this much extra income really helped me set that goal of how much extra income I actually wanted to earn and why, and creating a plan for it. So yeah, really what I would just tell people is figure out your intention for wanting to earn more and be clear with it. And that will help you to ask the right questions and do the right research and talk to the right people in order to get there. Instead of just, blindly just trying to make more through side hustles and doing all that, but not really knowing why, not really knowing how much, not really having an idea of your numbers and what they mean. And that's how people get burnt out and have 5 jobs, but don't see any progress.
It's true. And this is how you can end up making 6 figures and literally be living paycheck to paycheck. Because I was convinced that I just needed to increase my salary to a certain point and I would no longer be in debt. Money would just be coming out of my ears. And I promise you, I don't know what I did with the first couple years of earning a 6 figure salary. I have nothing to show for it. That shit disappeared. I cannot tell you where it went. And that is what happens when you don't have the intentionality behind the earning power. You just will find other reasons to spend money without having anything to show for it.
Yes, absolutely. And so that intention is just so important. That clarity is so important. And that why is so important with any decision that you're making like that.
Absolutely. Okay. So now you are out here sharing your money story on the internet at Maideli Dinero. Tell us the inspiration behind why you do that and how you work with clients now to help them level up their dinero.
Yes, absolutely. So having the financial education that I gave myself with the help of the people that I followed and the people that I admired, I just realized like how it's not fair that not everyone knows this and how I just like wanted to spread the word. I got so excited about it. And so that's when I started my passion project, which was to put content on the internet and then learning more about entrepreneurship and being in your side hustle course in 2021 really inspired me to start providing a more intensive program and service and to start also putting a price tag to it because my time shouldn't be given out for free and getting in that mindset of like, I can help people and it's okay for them to provide compensation for that help. And I don't have to helping my community doesn't mean that I have to do it for free. It doesn't mean that I have to resent them because I'm tired and I'm not getting paid. It's a win-win. We could both be happy in this situation, in this agreement. And so I really have to work on my mindset around that, but it was help being inspired and mentored by people who didn't even realize that I was being inspired and mentored by them, such as you. And so, so I was able to launch that service as a money coach. And so now I do money coaching and I do the teacher transition VIP mentorship program. And so those are my 2 offers right now. And I feel like both of those go hand in hand. Both of those provide freedom. Both of those provide a way for people to think differently about money and the situation they're in and to create more abundance and opportunities for themselves, more safety for themselves. And it's more important now than ever to create that and to spread the word on that with the environment that we're living in. And so that's what drives me, is to continue doing that work, to continue getting paid for that work so that I don't burn out and that I still enjoy it, and to make sure that my clients are inspired and can inspire others and bring their community and families with them.
I love that so much. It's such a full circle moment for you to go from being the person who didn't know what was happening with their money and wanting to learn to now you being the person that is passing on this knowledge. I think that's what we need to see so much more of in our community. This really is a grassroots movement when it comes to financial literacy because the powers that be really don't want us as people of color to be financially savvy. When you think about how capitalism works, it requires a working class of people who feel like money is outside of their control. And the people at the top decide what you get. And when we can shift some of that power dynamic and have people in our community who are financially empowered, who can really become change makers, that's when things really start to shift. So I thank you and commend you for the work that you do. I know that you will inspire so many others to pick up a copy of a book, start listening to a podcast, start following people on social media, because the more financial literacy we have in our community, the more powerful we become as a force. And I want to close this out by asking you, what is next? Now that you have found yourself in a position where you are a first generation wealth builder who has potential limitless possibilities of what your life can look like, what's next for you?
Yes, absolutely. That's such a great question. Like I mentioned, I'm trying to dabble into real estate investing and learning more and being okay with not knowing everything and learning from, I bought a course for real estate investing in myself so that I can get there quicker and in a pace that works for me. So that is my professional goal right now, is to learn all the things and to take action on it. In terms of personal, I am finding more ways to just enjoy my life now and to really think about what brings me joy, what brings me peace. So I am dancing. I am going out dancing multiple times a week and just really enjoying moving my body and being out there and meeting people and incorporating both of those things right now in my life. It's okay to learn more and strive toward a goal, but also just be and have fun and live my life are things that I'm trying to be better at balancing out. And so what's next for me is just finding new ways to bring joy into my life and to continue to grow. And I think that's enough.
I think that's more than enough. And I think
Yes,
it's such a great testament to what it looks like to go from surviving to thriving. You're definitely thriving at this point, Maideli. And
absolutely.
I love your story. Thank you so much for being here. And for folks that want to find out more about the work that you do, please follow Maideli at Maideli Dinero on Instagram and check out all the stuff she has going on. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity and I admire you so much, Janice. I cannot say that enough. So thank you. I would not be here if you hadn't already opened the doors and welcomed us all in with open arms. And we're so lucky to have you.
Thank you so much.